Y'all know what it is. This is Black Power Media. This is the Remix Morning Show, giving you that boom bap breakfast of radical news and everything in between. I go by the name of the Air Doctor. Let me introduce you to your host. We got no other than Kalonji Jama Changa, Lucretia Williams, and Kamal K. Franklin, and Little Man.
Black Power.
Yeah.
It's good.
Like here for
Black Power Media in the building. What's happening?
Good.
Good morning.
Can you hear me, Lucretia?
Yeah.
I said your screen is dark. I thought you was getting some light.
Really? You're gonna start the show like that, Kamal?
Oh, my, I just was,
Really?
was something I wanted to point out.
Really? Thank you. I mean, you're bright enough for all of us. So
I like Lucretia. This is the first time I'm on the screen with her. Lucretia, you get an A+ for the day. You winning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. What's happening? Remixes. What's good? How y'all feel out there?
Good, man. What's good with you, Kalonji? How you been?
Man, I'm out here swinging this blade, hoping I don't get cut. Just out here rumbling, going through a few personal things, but I had to come on here today because, it's Black Power. So I got to recharge, reboot, all that type stuff, so yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
No doubt.
Lucretia, what you got going on for this week?
Finals. So my finals end early December. So I'm just like writing papers and working. And I think we got some family stuff this weekend. But
Carving up the bird?
Probably. Yep. So
Are you a veg though?
No.
Oh.
Nope.
It. I stereotyped you. I assumed that you might be a vegetarian or a vegan or.
There you go. Assuming.
My bad.
Mm.
My bad.
Yeah. What about you, Kamal?
Yes.
What you got going on?
None of your damn business. None of your business.
Yeah, I can't come over.
Worry about me.
I can't come over for Thanksgiving because I come over.
Said a bad word.
Look, he said I have to give him $1. They have a bet if I say a bad word.
Oh,
you see how damn is a bad word, but But if I do such thing, I got to give him $1. Now he's running around telling everybody.
Dude was out. He was like, "Yo, I'm about to get my $1." He was out.
I said a bad word.
Like, let's win. Yes. Why y'all so quiet, man? What's going on? Wake up. Anyway, I love the Remix Morning Show. It's a beautiful thing. Good morning. Great Africans out there doing what you do. It is a warm day here on a Wednesday, what they say hump day, revolutionary week. A lot of things went on this week, of course. Yesterday we remember that our grandmother here in Atlanta was murdered by the police. That was Monday, the 21st. We're talking about Katherine Johnson, 92-year-old, was gunned down this week, 16 years ago. And in a couple of days, we will commemorate the murder, the 50 shots that was pumped into the van carrying Sean Bell and his boys, his brothers, Trent and the brother Joseph Guzman, that was 16 years ago as well, and I also hopped on to remind you all that the execution of our brother KJ is scheduled for 6 days. So make sure that we bang out on that while we out here thinking about, about this Native Holocaust that many people will be celebrating tomorrow. Anyway, I'm back.
Good to have you.
Yes,
Matt.
thank you.
All right, so he over here talking. He over there?
I'm talking to my kid who's trying to extort me for $1. This thing's. I'm sorry. The show was important, but I'm getting shaken down right now for a word that doesn't even qualify as
Mm-hmm.
of all the words I could have said.
No doubt.
Now he's going off to camp. Say peace. All right.
To camp.
No school this week. Oh God, get away.
See? You
see the abuse, not just from you guys, all over the place.
You see what I was saying
you
before?
Dish out the same amount, come out.
No,
so
don't.
You can't even be saying that.
Right here in the chest.
Oh, he still ain't going yet. 1 second. He's showing you he got the $1.
Okay,
Good.
got the money. Queens
that's
get the
enough.
money.
So we just here. I mean,
I
It's
mean,
like y'all
I'm a
already had
guest.
Thanksgiving
I'm a
turkey. You
guest,
know what I'm saying?
so you know.
You a
Like
guest.
y'all,
You're not a
Yeah,
guest. You've been on the
I'm a
show like
guest.
at least 3
you had a
times.
guess?
You
I'm
here.
still a guest, at least 4 times. Yeah, this
Nah,
is my
we don't
4th
do it
time.
like that.
Oh,
You kick the shoes off already. You here now.
No,
You
I
ain't
still
no-
have my shoes on.
Oh, okay. Well,
and her light off. But you know,
okay.
Listen,
Okay.
come give me a light.
Lucretia's helping us work on Kamal's atheism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
She's drafting them over.
she was
winning them
very
over.
convincing. She was very convincing last week. It almost made me. I had to think about it.
I'm just living
Okay.
my life. You know, I'm not trying to convert you.
But you know, you never know. You never know. That's the best way to do it. Well, actually, no, it's not the best way to do it. The best converters are all the ones who are obviously trying. Like I've run through now like about 4 of these like Netflix or HBO documentaries about the bad churches. It's always about like the churches who they turn into cults and all the things that they members, all the money, basically the members like dish out. And and some of it just seems from the obviously from the outside looking in, so like hilarious that you're like, who are you following? Like, why are you following this person? It just went on yesterday. This woman, I should say, like who had a weight loss program that she connected to the Bible. I forgot the name of the program, but apparently like it took off, like, you know, like, and so all the Christians adopted it and they were trying to lose weight. And basically it was like, you know, you can eat whatever you want, but like 3 times a day, like breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then when you got the urge to eat again, just start praying to God. Right. And for the zealots, some of it worked. And so she put out these pamphlets and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, the mainstream media picked it up and at first praised her and gave her all this attention. And then out of that, she started her own church. And then they started covering, of course, all the bad things she started doing in terms of like getting everybody's money, divorcing her one husband to get with another husband. And it's like, I'm like, y'all following her? She's got all of this dough coming in and doing all these private planes and stuff like that with this bad little conversion scheme. I was so pissed.
Are you talking about Tamblyn? I can't remember her name.
It's something like it might be like Remnant Church or something like obviously it's a biblical reference, so I did not know what that was. But you know, it's connected to like the 144,000 who are going to be the last ones on Earth, and it's like Remnant or something like that.
Yeah,
but,
cults are fascinating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't atheism? Is it being an atheist just like the religion of science?
No.
Almost.
I mean, there's a good documentary. It's old, but it's like early 2000s. It's called The Atheist Tapes, and it talks to this mostly came out of Britain, the UK, so it's got a lot of UK people there, but there are some Americans and Jewish rabbis and like just people all over. And yeah, I would say go check that out. But from people like Richard Dawkins, it's absolutely science only. So
I believe in I will say, as opposed to calling it a cult of science, I believe science provides the best possible ways to find answers. I just don't believe this. They've like anybody, like human beings, folks make mistakes and have to correct them. So there's no reason for me to believe in sort of an absoluteness of so-called scientific discovery, which will constantly get changed and updated, right? So in that way, I'm a little cautious about any stream of thought. And again, I'm sure scientists would agree that they're not suggesting that everything they come up with is like it has to be tested and then retested, and then someone might come up with another theory and you build off of that, so forth and so on. So I don't believe in any sort of absolute knowledge that derives from either a single book or a single way of thinking. But I am sort of naturally against any thinking that seems to suggest that it will have all the answers to every question, and you only have to listen to what those answers are, and you don't have to yourself question it. That to me that's when you get into the cult of either religion and or the cult of science, which lead us to, not to get into a controversial topic, but like the vaccines and how immediately they were supposed to be doing 1, 2, 3 in terms of solving, and then every 6 weeks to 8 weeks they came back with like, oh, you know what, now we need a booster, but now you need this and now you need that. And some of it I still think works to a degree, but it doesn't work to the way it was sold to us all, right? That it was like, nah, it's not working like that. So obviously you're not getting it right by yourself either. So yeah.
I think the biggest cult that unfortunately we all are part of is capitalism, because folks bow down to this concept of money and if it's going to be the savior of mankind. So I think that it is the most swiftest cult on the planet because of the fact that the slaves have bought into it and they actually think that they're part of it, while denouncing other parts and pieces of it. So in actuality, a lot of these quote unquote religions and cults are byproducts of capitalism itself. It's a microcosm of the macrocosm. And they will pretty much burn down these other cults to make sure that they don't get too much play. No, this is the national narrative right here. This is the line that we're dealing with, and stick to it. Anything else outside of it is a threat. So if it's outside of these Christian morals, these white European Christian morals, then then it means nothing. It's like sink it. It's a cult. But I always say that because folks, even when you're talking about organizing, if too many folks get behind you, then they say they're cult leaders or whatever. And I'm down to be a cult leader. When I say cult leader, a leader of your culture. You know what I'm saying? That's the cult that we should be following, our culture. So that's just my 2 cents.
It's almost like the ideal to be rich is like a distraction. It's like you spend all your time and money and your freedom. When you talk about freedom and freedom of time, being with family, doing this and that and the third, just so I can be rich and just almost like a game, a competition to be richer than the other person instead of just being able to take care of your family and be comfortable. So you definitely right about that. That capitalism cult, boy, they out there. Bitcoin, this, that, and the third. Capitalism. But with that said, we started off early, y'all. This is with politics, religion, capitalism. You're going to get all that right here on the Remix Morning Show. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our first break, and then we're going to come back and give y'all some news. That's cool. All right, right here on the Remix Morning Show. All right, big up, y'all. Why do I always do that? All right, so big up, everybody. Thank y'all for tuning in. Make sure y'all like, make sure y'all share, make sure y'all throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. But while you're doing that, put that money in your hands and put it on patreon.com account for Black Power Media so we can keep this thing moving and grooving. So we don't got to have no corporate sponsors and we can get on here and talk to y'all like y'all want to be talked to. All right. With that said, we are still celebrating Hip Hop History Month. I wanted to talk about a certain group. I think we brought it up yesterday. No other than the Ghetto Boys. Ghetto Boys. This one right here, Crooked Officer. That's right. Let's talk about the Ghetto Boys. The Ghetto Boys, spelled G-E-T-O Boys, is a group out of Houston, Texas. They was formed back in the 1990s, consisting of Bushwick Bill, Scarface, Willie D, and also DJ Ready Red, straight out of Trenton, New Jersey. Let's not forget that. That's right. Prince, Johnny C, and Little Billy. Now, Little Billy, who was their dancer, turned in later to Bushwick Bill. So they came out with smash hits like Mind Playing Tricks on Me, Crooked Officer. But Ghetto Boys lyrics was going over all types of controversial topics, especially on the violence tip, psychotic experiences, drug addiction, also fighting against the police and what was going on in the hood, and talking about social conscious things that was going on. Also, they came out with 9 albums. For some, they might know about this group right here, but then it transformed only to these 3. And then after that, Big Mike joined the group. Big Mike came along, and it was Big Mike, Scarface, and Bushwick Bill until Bushwick Bill's death, which happened, and then the group disbarred. So big up to the Ghetto Boys. Got to shout them out. Houston's own. That's what it is right here on the Remix Morning Show, y'all. Let's get back to our hosts. All right.
just like Rodney King. But if you try that shit with me, it's gonna be a different scene. Try to pull me over on a dark road, but I'll be damned if I don't grab my...
All right. All right.
Shout out to Bushwick Bill.
I know. There was no group other than Bushwick Bill. No offense to the rest of them.
Whoa.
All your eyes was on was the short brother. Let's just face it. I mean, that was the beginning of representation politics. You know what I'm saying?
It was. That was the first little man, as they say.
Yeah. And only.
The only.
Can you name your top 5 short MCs? Him, Phife Dawg, who else?
You stupid. The 5-footer from Black Moon.
Too short. Anyway.
My bad.
Nah, but I would say back in the 90s, they definitely had influence because I first moved down south, and it was one of the main groups I constantly heard that had some lyrics, especially Scarface, Bushwick Bill. And it was a lot of misogyny and a lot of violence, but it also gave you that look at the streets. And they also had some socially conscious stuff also. So big up to the Ghetto Boys.
Keisha, do you know one Ghetto Boy song? Yeah, you made Kalonji leave because of that. See?
It's Lucretia's volume. What happened to her mic?
Speak, Lucretia.
There you go.
There.
Hello. Speak,
Yeah,
Lucretia. Oh, the tone come out.
I meant because that's the sound.
Ooh, the tone. That was awful.
What you know about the Ghetto Boys, Lucretia? That before your time?
Before my time. I know nothing. Yeah.
Well, check them out if you want to hear some good violent hip hop.
True.
I will put them on the list of my violent
You need to
hip-hop
get
groups.
pumped, or you need to get pumped. Little Ghetto Boys.
Yeah, okay, I will.
If you go out there and stab a motherfucker, that's the Ghetto Boys. Yeah.
So that's the Hip Hop History
Yeah.
Month throwback. I'll catch you on the next break.
My bad. How you doing otherwise, Lucretia? You good?
I'm good, Kamal. Yeah. I'm always worried about coming on the remix because I'm like, oh, I need to be prepared. I need to be, a journalist. But yeah, I
As
want to
you've
do the
seen
remixes proud,
Yeah.
So.
But as you've seen now, you don't need to do any of that, of course. Yeah.
I mean, well, apparently I need my light, which, I understand. Some people won't let me forget. But
One step at a time.
Well,
Yeah.
Well,
I'm here for you. You ready
I
to
don't
slap
really-
that mat? You ready to slap
Let's
that
slap
mat?
them up. Let's do it.
See, speaking of It's a Remix Morning Show. How y'all
You're
doing?
back.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Y'all got
man.
any stories y'all want to start off with? I got some stuff loaded, but I will wait until you got some stuff. If anybody
Man,
got
y'all go ahead and rock. I'm a little ring rusty. I haven't been on for a couple weeks and whatnot. I gotta get my, you know what I mean? Gotta get my.
Okay, got it. I was like, what does that mean? Got it.
Oh
Got
man, Lucretia, I forgot you're a millennial. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
I gotta fix the terminology. I'm used to these elders out here. But go ahead.
Yeah. I do, but go ahead, Kamal, while I drop mine in the chat.
Okay. So this was an interesting story to me. We didn't get to, it was on the run sheet from yesterday, and we didn't get to talk about it. So I wanted to start with this one. So let me bring that up. So this is a story about women who are suing. They were diagnosed with uterine cancer and tumors. Now they're suing the makers of chemical hair straighteners. A recent study found that women who reported frequent use of hair straightener products were more than twice as likely to develop uterine cancer than women who did not. And obviously, because of the products, this is a story that's mainly geared towards Black women who have been using these products, and potentially some Black men too, but I would assume the majority of the Black women who've been using these products for relaxing of hair. So it says 3 years ago, Vonda Terrell was diagnosed with an aggressive form of uterine cancer that has since spread to her abdomen and liver. She underwent a radical hysterectomy, the removal of the uterus, cervix, ovaries, and fallopian tubes, and tried to come to terms with the way the disease had altered her life. She says, I don't like to look at the survivor rates. Cheryl said, through tears, cancer is such a painful condition. And it says, Terrell is one of 4 Black women, 3 of whom spoke to NBC News exclusively, who have filed a federal lawsuit against L'Oreal, I think that's L'Oreal, or L'Oreal, and other companies alleging that...
L'Oreal.
Say it again?
I think it's L'Oreal.
L'Oreal, that's exactly what it is. L'Oreal and other companies alleging that chemicals in the company's hair products caused them to develop uterine cancer or other severe health effects. The lawsuits followed the release last month of a study by the National Institute of Health that found that women who reported frequent use of hair straightening products, defined as more than 4 times in the previous year, 4 times in a year, were more than twice as likely to develop uterine cancer compared to those who did not use the products. According to the lawsuits, 3 of the women who have a hysterectomy, one of them at the age of 28. So really quick, I want to go down with one more part of it. So it says, here we go. It says, so there was never anything on the product's packaging, they said, that related to the fact that they had potentially some increase in health risk by using the product. And the lawsuits allege indicating that normal use of the products could cause them to develop uterine fibroids or breast or uterine cancer. And it says Alexandra White, head of the Environmental and Cancer Epidemiology. Hey, Lucretia, help me out with that. I feel like the ear doctor right now.
Epidemiology.
Thank you so much. Epidemiology group of the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, and the lead author of the study cautioned that the study did not prove that hair straightening products caused uterine cancer. So just to start off there about, going back earlier to how these products work and or don't work, and the fact that there's so many different things that we just take for granted that we use, that we don't understand, all of us, right? This is just one particular thing, but that we don't understand the possible health effects or outcomes from these products when they mix certain when they mix certain chemicals together and then we put them either on or in our body, and what the expected outcomes could be. I was reading something else. I'm not going to remember the particulars, but I think it was about the amount of plastics, the amount of, there's one about plastics, but it was about birth control pills, I think, when they're flushed down the toilet, and then how they get into the water supply and how they've increased the amount of estrogen, I think, in the water, which can have negative effects, and then there's no way to get it out. So it's like things like that we don't understand when you mix A plus B, and then what the potential outcomes of all that stuff could be.
But you know how wild this is? Because I'm sitting here and I feel like I'm in the twilight zone because of the fact that we talked about this back in the 90s, and they were saying that folks, the black herbalists and doctors and whatnot, they were saying that they were kooks, and they were saying that that's crazy, whatever, so on and so forth, because they was talking about how the relaxers and everything was seeping into the pores and causing different forms of brain cancer and different problems with the vision and organs and so on and so forth. We got to remember that the skin is the largest organ on the body, right? So when you I hear a lot of people talk about they're vegan and all that type of stuff, but they still use certain products. You can't, in your kitchen, you can't be using Dawn and Palmolive and all this other type of stuff because of the fact that it has chemicals, and all of that stuff seeps through your skin. The lotions that you use, you know what I'm saying? They seep through your pores. So if it has chemicals and things of that nature in it, then you don't want to utilize it because it's going directly to your bloodstream. So it's just like when you talk about, cocaine, heroin, all this type of stuff. They say, well, if you touch it, you can get high. What do you think you can do with this? It's still chemicals in it. That's why you have to deal with natural products if you want to deal with this situation. So, it's wild that now all of a sudden it's like, newsflash, it causes cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, how many times we got to go through this?
Yeah, for me, I'm glad you brought this up, Kamau, because this was one of my stories that I was going to bring up, because I just thought about my own personal life relaxing my hair. She lists, I think you read it. She relaxed her hair between 8 and like early 40s, which is about the same well, not for me, but I stopped in like when I was early 20s. So from 8 to like 21, I was relaxing my hair at least 4 times a year. And and she talks about the societal pressure of Black women um to straighten their hair, and like, I remember the natural hair movement coming up recently, and it's kind of died down a bit, but this goes back to colonialism, straightening our hair, lightening our skin. um and we as women are not really given a choice. Like, they could say, you can wear your natural hair, that's great, but like when people get fired, when people get told your hair is not professional, and all that, like, what are people going to do? And combine that with our communities already being the first in line for environmental devastation, right? Like, there's lead in our water, there's lead in umbilical cords, like, I think there was a study. I can't remember now. Now I wish I had it, but newborn babies have over 47 different plastic phytochemicals in their blood when they're already born. So we start off, and then if you add the intersection of Black and brown and indigenous, right, we're at the bottom of the environmental ladder, and we develop cancer. And so then I think, okay, if uterine cancer becomes an explosion in the Black population, it will become a Black problem, something that Black people have done wrong, and no research and no paying attention to these women who are dying.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because we talk so much about climate change, but environmental change, like the micro environmental factors that again are sold to us in such a benign way of like, this is going to do this for you, this is going to do that for you. And someone brought up Johnson & Johnson baby powder. I think I think everybody can remember using Johnson & Johnson baby powder, or either on a newborn or just having it around the house, almost like this as like powder to put on. And then you hear decades later that again, these studies have linked it to different diseases, cancer in particular.
Mesothelioma, lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you see that stuff happening. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. No. I was going to say in unsealed documents when they had the trial, they talked about how Johnson & Johnson had knowledge back in the 60s that they had traces of asbestos inside of the product, and they still sold it. But this is what capitalism is. Now, the wild shit about that is you have a company like Johnson & Johnson, and they're involved in the whole vaccination game. A lot of these companies, Pfizer, so on and so forth, you have to look beyond just their thing. It's all about the money. And the thing is, we look at it and we say, well, it's approved by the FDA, you know what I'm saying, the Food and Drug Administration, you know what I'm saying, but they approve everything, you know what I mean? So the thing is, I'm glad that you brought this up, because it's almost like when you talk about things like this, it's like, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. The things that we put into our body in the name of just diet alone, you know what I mean? You have folks that go buy grape soda, cherry soda, strawberry soda, and it's not one, it'll tell you on the damn thing, there's no fruit in it. The quarter waters that they sold us in the hood, no fruit in it. You talk about even alcohol. You talk about, because the whole thing around, the Kanye and Kyrie and the whole Jewish faith and all that type of situation, and these Zionists. You look at in the hood, you got Mad Dog 2020. This is the same company that Mad Dog stands for. I mean, the MD stands for Mogan David. Mogan David is the wine that they drink during Passover, so on and so forth. But this isn't the wine that they sell you. They promote Strawberry MD 2020, Kiwi MD 2020. You know what I'm saying? And all this type of stuff. But it's crazy because they don't drink that shit themselves. You'll never find that in their neighborhoods, So then when someone speaks out against it, it's like, oh, no, you're just, that's not right. You can't say that. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? These folks are literally killing us. And that's what capitalism is all about. Capitalism has no concern about your well-being. And then they will drive your ass to the hospital. Then you can't even afford to be treated. Then that's a whole nother hustle. And then from there, it's the cemetery. That's a whole nother hustle. It costs more to be buried sometime than it does to stay alive. You know what I'm saying? The average funeral nowadays is like what, $8,000 to $10,000? You
Oh,
have
that's the
poor
low
people
end. I
dying.
think that's the low end.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's low. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you can't even afford to die out this motherfucker.
I was back there thinking about Magnum condoms and the fact that they're looked at as, listen, no, because it's cervical cancer.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
man. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
because
That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
because
sorry.
the cervical cancer is also the fact that Magnum condoms are focused for black men. It's like,
Right.
what are they putting in this condom, knowing that it's going mainly towards black men, and then at the same time, it's causing cervical cancer.
No
I
doubt. No doubt. I ain't mean to laugh. It was just,
I know how I
I
just bring words. You know, it's
I
Oh,
didn't know
no,
where you was going, bro. I'm sorry,
the
man.
area of the topic of the. But
Yeah.
you're 1,000%
Yeah.
correct. As in, like the products that they again, these chemicals that are put in these products to make them seem like they're usable or serviceable, or do the things that they tell you they're going to do, and the outcomes of using them over time obviously are not told to you, or the chances of whatever could happen are minimized. And like you said, the FDA approves a lot of, and imagine the things that the FDA doesn't approve, which then these companies go and take to other countries
Right.
that don't have any protections whatsoever and sell them there, usually to black and brown countries, right? And even some Asian countries. Like there's a lot of conversations around, how some of the cigarette bans or the warnings that have to happen. And then these same tobacco companies take those same cigarettes with the higher levels of nicotine and other things that are in them, and take them to other. They don't just like stop. Oh, we're not going to sell that because it wasn't approved by the FDA here. We see that of all the things, FDA has sort of flagged this for its contents and for the likelihood of spreading diseases. Not like they go like, oh, okay, we can't use that, y'all. Let's just like tear that up and go find something else. It's like, what we're going to do now? Well, let's go sell it in some country in Latin America. Let's go sell it in some country in Africa. Let's go sell it in some country in Asia where we can just buy somebody off more overtly and we ain't got to worry about it. And then we'll make millions of dollars that way. And everybody cheers. And it's like, great, stock options are going to go up this year. Because even though we couldn't sell it in our biggest market, we have these other markets where we're going to push this product also.
Or they'll ship it back over here, like you said, not just sell it in the other markets, but ship it back over here without the same restrictions or requirements, more or less. So you're right, and I don't know, man. It's just so wild that capitalism is it's 360. It's like
all encompassing. Yeah.
it's like the oxygen. You breathe capitalism in. You can't even escape capitalism. Even if you say you're a vegan, they control the seeds. You have these corporations like Monsanto. They want to, you certain seeds are illegal. You can't even have. You have to go through these folks. You can't be considered organic if they don't give you the stamp of approval. And even being organic doesn't necessarily mean it is safe because of the fact that it's just a stamp in certain cases. It means it has this much, a certain percentage of natural seeds in it. So.
Maybe it's a conspiracy theorist thought where I'm thinking like cancer came from plastic, because it seemed like before plastic was like mainly used, it wasn't too much cancer around. But after that, plastic being put in this, that, everything else, foods, this, it's like even drinking out of water bottles, it's getting some of that plastic residue inside the water. So it's a lot going on.
There's some truth to that.
I'm sure we could find it, right? Rates of cancer with, plastic and other chemical production, right?
Yeah, of course. And I would definitely say that and other chemical production, because the air itself, you can be vegan, whatever, and on a raw diet, but there's a hole in the ozone. Getting back to the environment, you know what I'm saying? You got we're not thinking about the emissions and the gases and the electricity. We're walking around right now, just with us dealing with these waves through the computers and the phones and all of that stuff has things, it has things to do with it. It has to do with it as well. Technology, the more intelligent the man gets, the more ignorant we become, because we don't think anymore. We just take whatever's packaged to us, and they will package death and make it look good and say, oh, this is the new iPhone 76. You know what I'm saying? Put it to your ear, or don't put it to your ear.
$4,800 that everybody's going to rush to go get.
And a lot of my friends go to Africa and say, when you get out here, you can really smell the air. Like when you come back to the States, you're not smelling real air. So
certain parts of the country you can go to. Just further south in the country, places like Mississippi, you can smell the fresh air, but you could also smell the blood from
And then Marsh.
Yeah. But I mean, this, this is what we have to deal with.
All right, so you got something else pulled up?
Yeah. Let me see here. Share my screen.
Go, Lucretia. Go, Lucretia.
I'm doing it.
Go, Lucretia.
There we go.
There you go. It's your birthday.
Sharing my screen.
Oh,
Okay,
almost
can you
there.
see?
No, not there. You go.
Woohoo! Okay, so this one's close to my heart. So Biden extends student loan payment pause as debt relief plan remains on hold. The federal loan payment moratorium will be extended no later than June 30th, while the courts consider legal challenges, the president said. So I want to scroll here. The payment pause, which was previously set to expire in January, will be extended until June 30th or until the litigation is resolved, whichever comes first. If the litigation has not been resolved by June 30th, payments will resume 60 days after that. I'm completely confident that my plan is legal, but it isn't fair to ask tens of millions of borrowers to be eligible for relief to resume their student debt payments while the courts consider a lawsuit. So, yeah, if you can pause it for 2 years, I think you can just take all of that debt.
I agree. Yeah.
Just wipe all that out. I'm really tired of this like back and forth and not being able to apply. It's being blocked, even though, like, what is happening? Like, this is just, I remember them saying, I'm going to wipe out all your student loan debt. And now I can't even get 20,000. It's just, it's a circus. It's a circus.
And there's many that comment that even the sort of legal grounding in which they did it could have been better prepared to avoid this kind of challenge. And so this plan that was kind of just put out there, and then they got a lot of media attention, which some folks are saying were done just to drum up votes in the midterm elections. They understood would face a challenge or get a challenge from the Supreme Court. And then they may have to start all over again with starting to sort of wipe that out because of the way in which they rolled out this plan. And so there's a lot of suspicion, as you said, that there is kind of the idea that this is not something that they've thought that hard of or that they really considered or were concerned about, except for a ploy to get folks to vote. So we have to sort of, like you said, keep watching. I think there's some other organizations out there and folks that have been sort of stepping up and trying to make sure that this actually happens. So we got to support those groups and hopefully at some point get this administration to follow through on at least one thing and start to cancel some of this debt, which again is like kids come out of college or folks come out of college, not kids. I came out of like law school with massive debt that's almost as if you've already purchased a house, before you've even started your work life or your career or whatever it is. And there's nothing that says the system has to work this way. There are cousins in England and cousins in France and other places have obviously similarly operating educational systems, but don't put this level of debt on the young folks who are starting off their lives and trying to get moving and stuff like that. So there's obviously ways to accomplish higher education, which is not predicated on putting people in debt. Whereas the only thing that they start thinking about then is, I got to find this highest paying job possible, no matter what I like, what I care about. I just got to get the highest income possible to start paying this stuff off. And so now I'm just part of the machine. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's all game. I mean, like you said, it's really unnecessary. But since it's capitalism, we need talking points. We need bargaining points. We need the carrot on the stick to make folks feel like, oh, it's going to change now with this administration. No, it's going to change with that administration. It's just like a lead on to nowhere. You know what I'm saying? It's like, we're going to feed you. Just wait right here. We'll be back. Give us 4 years and we'll feed you. You know what I'm saying? Next thing you know, you're into a whole new program with more broken promises. Yeah, I think they should cancel it all, and education should be free. Water should be free. All natural resources should be free. I mean, it doesn't make sense that folks have to suffer and die. You have some people fighting for education, and you have some folks literally right now on the streets of any city USA who are sleeping on the sidewalk, while others are talking about giving away some turkeys and shit. You know what I'm saying? Giving away some dinners for one day to take some pictures and to look good and get donations, and then, it's back to business as usual.
Yeah, and so I'll say two things. So many students are like hustling throughout college, like working so many jobs, and there's this rhetoric of like, all those stupid kids that shouldn't have taken on that debt. We didn't know. We had no idea. And our parents also, who hadn't gone to college, didn't know. And then there's this they didn't understand the game, is what I mean. And people would say, well, you just should have done this. And there's this rhetoric against people who have debt, which is so many people. Except, Elon Musk is how many billions of dollars in debt? Why is he allowed to have this huge jumbo loan, but I can't have $60,000 in student loan debt? Like, I don't what? And so yeah, there's that. I could go
Yeah.
on, but yeah.
No, and you're right. And he'll go bankrupt, or go into bankruptcy court in 30 seconds. And he probably will over Twitter, and get most of that debt taken off to restart the company. But as we know, like for student loans, if you file bankruptcy, you can't get those debts discharged. So the system is gamed against, again, folks who are working class, even middle class folks, who are trying to, like you said, like this is promoted, like it's supposed to be higher education leads you to better job outcomes, higher salaries. And so it's promoted for us to take out this kind of debt. It's promoted for us to say, this is the way to have a quote unquote decent life. And so of course people will do it, and people in some ways should do it sometimes, right? Because that's the way the system is. But the fact that they don't allow you ways to which, like you said, either you're shamed if you don't pay back. And it's not just in this kind of, like, that's how they do credit card debt on us too, right? You get credit card debt to get all the things they tell you need to have to be a fully functioning human being and to feel good about yourself. And when you do it and you don't pay it back, or something happens and it's too much, then you get shamed for trying to go after the things that they tell you to go after in the first place. So again, i.e. capitalism and the marketing of things to us, some of which we may need, some of which we don't, but the ways in which we get it are ways in which are not only destructive to us as people, but as we've just talked about, destructive to the planet and destructive to our bodies.
Right. And as they see it, more jobs are created by you going in debt, because now you have debt collectors. You have folks that are talking about, we can fix your credit. I mean, it is so much game around this. I mean, the games got games. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just like, it's incredible to have your mind just, it's no wonder so many people are on drugs. So many people are just losing their minds because of the fact that, if you really stop and think about the madness that these architects have produced, you will go insane, because either you will fight or you'll try to go ahead and retreat and act like, look, well, I'm a part of it and this is still the best country in the world. You have Stockholm syndrome. Oh, I'm not, it's okay and such, and this one's running for president, so it's going to be all right. What's going to happen now? We see the whole thing around Elon Musk, he's the hot topic, and everybody's talking about Twitter's going to fall. This is such a, they're so diabolical, that we're actually concerned and worried that this platform is going to fall, when in actuality, all it is game. What they're going to do is flip it, and it's just going to be more surveillance. They're coming up behind the scene with more. They're talking about all these people that have been fired and quitting and all that type of stuff. I'm sure that they have more folks from the NSA that are coming onto Twitter and working on the back end, while we're over here talking about, oh, I'm going to lose all my contacts and so on and so forth. Wow, did we not survive before we knew who Elon Musk was, or before we knew who Twitter was, what Twitter was? It's just like, it's insane. It's like we don't even know how to communicate. This is our news source. And we talk trash, and then we're begging for, we're fighting for its survival. We should be fanning the flames.
And one of the ways we do that here on BPM is listening to the Remix Morning Show and everything else on BPM. Thank you so much for joining us, Remixers.
Yay. Remixers.
Lucretia did the whole drop. Great job.
I like that.
It's brought it back home.
Yeah.
But now she had to do a good now do a good segue to bring up somebody. Let's do a segue.
Do that.
Let's see. Bringing us healing vibes, the ear doctor. Please join us.
No, you gotta make it insulting. That's cool.
No, music is healing.
Speaking of Stockholm syndrome,
No.
See,
No.
that's where the sisters' energies come in, and they don't be on all that negative. They bring forth positivity and light.
It's just Lucretia energy.
Shout,
Anyone
shout
can
out,
bring this
shout out to
energy.
my sister Kim Brown.
Please, Ken.
Yo, but
yeah.
that's the funny thing about what y'all was talking about. It's like Abraham Lincoln then be like, you know what? Let's free them slaves. He's like, you know what? We need to fix this economy. This economy's going down. Let's get them out there. Let's get them in debt. Let's get them in school. Let's make them pay a house note. Let's make them pay a car note. Let's make them just debt. And they'll always be slaves to us.
Well, Abe said send him back to Africa. He didn't say all that.
Right?
He was like,
I'm still getting over that.
Yeah,
What should we do with these Negroes?
Yeah, he's like, send their ass back. But they haven't been there for a couple hundred years. Look, that's not my problem, whatever, so on and so forth.
Send
It'll
them
be
back.
good for the ratings. I'll run again. Oops. John Wilkes shot him in the boot. No, I'm joking. But anyway.
Blah, blah, blah,
But the industrialists were like, hey, y'all slowing up the economy by keeping the slave labor. So like you said, like a wage labor system, or we can use that land for whatever. Like, so it's like, they were down with it. I mean, I don't think they were like, there were no cars then, but I got, not the way in which car notes and everything. But
nah, but even the whole theory of
Carriage
capitalism is to constantly put
the
yourself
horses.
in debt. It's like, continue to put yourself in debt, and that's the American dream.
Well, these
Well,
rich
yeah.
people who ran this stuff were extremely in debt. Like, they were constantly taking loans from their planter relatives to get more and more land, to get more and more slaves. It ran on debt. It's just we can't have debt. Only they can have debt.
Right.
Or
And
our
then-
debt keeps us in a certain place, right? Because as you're saying here, Doctor,
Mhm.
and after we got off the plantation, then it's like, how do you make your living? Oh, you can go rent yourself to here,
Yeah.
and we'll give you some stuff to use, but then you got to pay that back by doing what? By working back on the plantation, and then you're never going to pay that stuff off.
Never.
So that's that first cycle. That sharecropping is that first cycle of debt post slavery or whatever.
And then it
Right.
goes from there to your kids.
But not only that, they decided to move with the times. They said, look, we're going to remix it. We're going to change it around, and we're going to make them look like they're free. We're going to give them the illusion of inclusion, and everything's going to be all right. And we're going to tell them after a while, we might even let them vote. You know what I'm saying? We'll let women vote. We'll let the Negroes vote, and everything's going to be cool. And, and they'll still be slaves. They'll be wage slaves.
Yeah.
We'll
They'll
create
be happy.
prisons. Yes, we'll create prisons, and we'll tell them that, you messed up, so we're going to have to put you, give you life in prison or give you 20 years, and every couple years, we'll flip it around a little bit, make it look good. And it'll be like the new iPhone. It's new and improved.
And then when we play sports against other countries, we'll get them to chant USA, USA. I'll tell you, boy, it's some mind fuckery going on. With that said, let's go ahead and take our quick break right here on the Remix Morning Show.
Blackout.
All right, big up everybody. You see, I'm out here on these hip hop streets once again. I wanted to talk about hip hop as in, we talk about elements, we talk about dance. Now, one thing about dances and hip hop, if you create a song and it has a dance with it, it's always been known to go a little further. Speaking of a song, I'm gonna bring up one person right here. Y'all remember this dude? This ain't about him, but at the same time, it is. It's about a guy named Joeski Love that came out with a song called The Pee Wee Herman. That's right. Joeski Love came out with The Pee Wee Herman. He came out with this song back in 1986. And he also got a Soul Train Music Award for Best Rap Single. Now, when we talk about this song right here, it was a fun dance. Pee Wee Herman was the man at the time. But when we look at the whole presentation of it, let me give you all a little bit of how it looked when this did come out. Check this out.
Check it out for the people, cause the party is burning. For a new dance, I know you've been yearning. For all you people concerning, a brand new dance called the Pee Wee Herman. Just move your hands into the front, and if you can't hear the music, say, huh? What? As you're doing the dance, it might hurt your back, but just look at the crowd. Say, I meant to do that. It's the Pee Wee Herman new dance sensation. Just go with the flow, cause it's even the nation. So go
Yes. Did I take y'all back right there? Listen, the Pee Wee Herman came out in 1986. One of the dances, as you would know, they had the Bismarck dance. You had the Big Daddy Kane, the Scoop, Scrap, and Lover dance. You also had the Kid and Play Kick Step, which was the Charleston remixed. So listen, it was a lot of dances, went into this whole hip hop thing. Big up to all the dances, as you can even see Soldier Boy doing his dance, the Soldier Boy, you. So big up to all the people that was creative enough to have dances in hip hop and have us on the floor all the way from that all the way to the wobble. So that is your hip hop flashback and also spotlight on no other than Joe Ski Love. Now let's take it back to the Remix Morning Show. You know how we do. All right, bam.
Should have mentioned the WAP, son.
Oh, the WAP. How about the Cabbage Patch?
You know what I'm saying?
Um, the Roger Rabbit.
What? College days.
Yo,
Before my time.
I'm not going.
about that, Lucretia.
I know
I'm
nothing. You're right.
I'm not going front. Joe Ski Love, that joint right there, you did go back. You know, shout out to the Ed Doctor for taking it back. Joe Ski Love, the Pee Wee Herman. That took me back to like the teenage years, going to the teenage parties and whatnot. You know what I mean? And I don't know, it was hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And it still got a little melody to it, still a little fresh.
Hell yeah.
Can't front on it. Can't run on it. Nah, I mean.
But back then they praised Pee Wee Herman. What was we on back then?
Well,
What are you talking
think,
about?
yeah, I think that it kind of made Pee Wee cool because I don't think Pee Wee was cool. You know what I'm saying? Especially the way he went out, you know, in the movie theaters and everything.
Pee Wee was playing with the Pee Wee. You know?
Pee Wee was a real jerk, pun intended. Anyway.
Such dad jokes.
Oh,
Oh, man.
But they're cute. I like them. They're
Boy,
just
Pee Wee's
they're
in there.
cute.
Hey, listen, man.
It's cute though.
But yeah, nah. So I mean,
oh yeah, the Roger Rabbit somebody mentioned. Yo,
Yeah.
I hated all
I
those
gotta be
dances.
hyped now. Although I'm tired of Hip Hop History Month. Can we do something else?
It's almost over, man.
It's almost over.
You the
horrible.
main one here that need to be learning about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Minister Server, man. He said he gonna open up a school for Kamal.
Just for some
Hip hop
You need to go to
education.
him. You need to go to it himself. I don't believe half that shit he be saying. He tried to back him up. What did he say was the 16th element of
the
hip hop?
fifth element is beatboxing when it comes to hip hop.
It's 16th element. What is he
You know,
talking
fucking beatbox. Nobody backed that up. Oh, beatboxing was an element of hip hop, son. Come on.
You know, when you know you're right, you just don't waste your time and argue with people.
Gold chains is like the 35th element of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? What
Oh,
the fuck?
man.
You know what I'm saying?
That didn't
Box,
get him.
a box cut is like the 45th element of hip hop.
A box cut. I love it.
You know what I'm saying? Like what? What?
Listen, man.
Everything's an element now.
That's
Adidas
horrible, man.
tracksuit is the 64th element of hip hop. What the fuck?
That's
Come out. You're so strong right now.
My bad. You know, I'm sorry.
Lucretia, my condolences. You joining this crew. You didn't know any better. Thought you would learn from being in the chat.
Oh, I knew. I knew. You
Oh,
know,
okay,
it must
you
be
like-
great. You too were the people that I was afraid of the most. You both
Us
of
too?
you.
Me?
Yeah, you. Why?
Yeah. What did I do?
You know, your energy is just real strong, and I appreciate that. It's just a lot. I'm an introvert.
lot.
You know, like getting like, you know, that's just it's a turn off for me. You
Yeah.
know, so I'm like,
Sorry. You know, it's
but
Black
you know,
Power.
I appreciate
what
it.
I'm
I
saying?
know. I know.
you
We
know,
need that
sorry.
energy. We do.
Thanks.
You guys be wanting the media without the Black Power. I gotta bring the Black Power
No,
back.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
you know, maybe just a little compassion. You know, a little like
But that's what it is.
gentleness. Yeah.
We
Let
the
him
thing
know.
is,
Let him know. Let him know.
yeah, I think let
Yeah.
him know. This
Let him
guy right here. I
Let
don't
him
even know why. She was actually talking
took
about
him
you, but
out.
she
You
wanted to
do.
balance it
You
out so you wouldn't feel like you were singled out. But
Well, people in the chat, I think Kalanji is mellow. Ooh,
thank you, Lady
we all
Alex.
know.
That's right.
Woo.
Hey, but that's the thing. Lady Alex is right. A lot of folks that I see. I mean, I was
I
talking to
know,
a brother
I
one
know.
day. He said, "Man, I like the old Kalanji better." I said, "What you mean?" He said, "Man, you used to didn't take no mess." I'm like, "Wow, like I'm a sucker now." Or something. But it's cool. Like,
That's so interesting.
you want me to blow something up? But anyway, Welcome to the Remix
But
Morning
that's a
Show.
fascinating, that's a fascinating conversation. Like, because we were talking about last week about like violence and who gets to use it and who's a revolutionary. And so I think what you're saying is like it's like speaking to that current anyway. Sorry, interrupt.
You're talking about violence and who's a revolutionary.
Mhm.
I missed that episode, but yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with
You're going for
violence.
like 2 weeks. You're going for 2 weeks. So
I know,
it was a lot.
Yeah,
So,
Anyway.
so okay, I got something I want to dig deep into. So I'm going to share the screen. So last week, Jon Stewart, liberal commentator.
John Boy.
I'm not going to call him a person to the left, and it really doesn't matter.
Feel the pull
One
to
second.
continue.
So he had on both Condoleezza Rice and Hillary Clinton, basically to talk about U.S. foreign policy or the role of the U.S. in the world. And the reason I thought it was good to go sort of talk about this or dissect this a little bit was because I felt like this is just a great way to study U.S. imperialism and how it works and the language that's used to justify U.S. actions and hegemony around the world. And so these two folks who supposedly are from different poles in terms of one being a conservative and one being a so-called liberal, how one, their views so align, two, how the so-called liberal in the bunch just nods his head, accepts everything that's said, and keeps the interview rolling like these two so-called experts know what they're talking about, when in reality, all they're doing is defending the U.S.'s role in invading countries and taking over countries and putting forth the narrative, again, that the United States always has a right to intervene, to get involved, to invade other people's countries. And only the United States may make mistakes, but it's never with evil intent. Whereas every other actor in the world, every other nation state or whatever, their intent is never legitimate and always should be pillared, particularly if it challenges U.S. policies. So let's just run a couple of seconds of this or minutes of this to hear what they got to say.
Very briefly on Libya, because that was on my watch.
But this is not.
But I want to make a larger point because, Gaddafi was a bad actor. Everybody knew he was a bad actor, and he threatened to kill his people by cockroaches. The United States was actually the supporter of European countries through NATO and the Arab League, which for the very first time came and said, we want to be part of trying to protect the people of Libya. Now, so I feel that particular intervention, we had certain capabilities militarily that nobody else had, which.
So first, she's putting this within the context of the United States had certain capabilities, i.e., the United States had a war machine that could do things to disrupt and take out Gaddafi, who she describes as someone who was killing their people via cockroaches, again, as the rationale for why the United States wanted to take out Gaddafi. And the reason the United States wanted to take out Gaddafi was because Gaddafi couldn't be controlled, right? Gaddafi, even as Gaddafi was getting older, and in my opinion, wasn't necessarily talking the same radical revolutionary talk that he was involved in 15 or 20 years ago, but yet was the leader of a quote unquote stable country. But and had capitulated a lot to Western interest in terms of what they wanted him to do. But that was not good enough when they saw the opportunity based on the so-called Arab Spring to take him out. They still decided to take him out and be done with him because they thought they'd be able to replace him with with somebody who they could control more. I don't know if y'all want to comment. I can roll it some more. I want to roll it.
I mean, I want to see what else they got to say, but I definitely want to comment, because I mean, just the whole thing by her starting off talking about Gaddafi was like, I mean, it's like a crock beyond crocs. And I'm sitting here, it's like sometimes you want to throw something at the TV. I'm like, if I throw something at this computer screen, then it probably won't work. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
We used to assist them. But, the Emiratis were flying and the Jordanians were flying, et cetera. The problem, and this is where I think you make a really good point. The problem is, okay, Gaddafi's gone. His horrible prisons are emptied. What comes next?
Right. That's the
What
point.
comes next?
And
That's the
that's
point.
always a problem
That's-
because there's
yeah.
always a vacuum. Because look, dictators don't allow institutions to flourish. So when you take the dictator out, there are no institutions.
That's right.
So but the question becomes: do you then say let Gaddafi go ahead and kill his people because it's going to be hard afterwards, or in our case, we thought Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. You're going to let that continue, or are you going to take him out?
So again, on that one, take the dictator out is language for we're going to kill hundreds of thousands of people
Yes.
under the guise of saying we're taking the dictator out. But what we're really doing is destabilizing. They don't have. It's not. They no. They do not. It's the op. They do have institutions that you don't like, institutions that usually at one point you supported, particularly when it comes to Saddam Hussein, in terms of his chemical weapons use against Iran, his chemical weapons use against his own people. Those things were accepted and supported or allowed, and he still was on the U.S. payroll. So to act as if somehow these dictators, and again, Saudi Arabia is a dictatorship. I'm not seeing them invaded. So when you're a dictator and you listen to the U.S. dictates, it seems to be okay for you to do whatever you want to do in your country, as long as you allow the U.S. to establish a base, or you allow the resources of your country to be taken over and to be given to the U.S. corporations for their own purposes.
And then do the best that you can in helping people to recover. You have to recognize that it's going to be hard once you take the dictator out. But John, it's a little bit of a false choice to say, well, then just leave the dictator in place because it won't be chaotic. It may not
But
be
is that-
chaotic.
I guess that what I'm saying is-
it may not be chaotic,
If we take
but
that
it might be
role
brutal
on,
against the people.
if we take that role on, can we sustain as a country? You know, when you think about the Soviet Union's collapse, they overextended and they got in an arms race with us and they had all these satellites. Are we overextending America's power, especially militarily, when you talk about an $800 billion defense budget?
Let's assume instead of being in a podcast studio, we were in
Yes.
the Situation Room, or in the tank in the Defense Department, wherever we
All
were.
right.
Okay, and we're
Talk. They're like, oh, wow, a real life scenario.
saying, okay, what do you see on the horizon? Well,
Right.
North Korea is shooting these missiles over our ally, Japan.
Right.
China is trying to build up its blue water navy so that it can compete with us anywhere in the world.
Mhm.
You've got, the Russia-China relationship. It's tricky, but we have to watch it really carefully because we don't know where that might lead. We've got Iran, still a very bad actor, and probably in addition to killing their people, will cause some external problems in order to take people's minds off it. We have a lot of issues. So do we just sit back and hope for the best, or do we try to be positioned?
And now comes the arrogance that it is the role of the United States, again, as the parent of the world, to the way the language is spoken, right? The role of the United States is to go police the world or to parent the world on how government should happen, as if it even has that interest, right? So the language that's used is to convince us that the United States is the big boy in the room or the big girl in the room, that the role of the United States is then to make sure everybody is behaving themselves. So the language that's used gets you to start thinking that, oh, that's what our country is for, as opposed to they're on the search for resources, land, and control. That's what they're on the search for. Their interests are no more valid than anybody else's interests because they don't care about human rights. They don't care about people suffering. They care about controlling land. They care about controlling resources, and they care about making sure that there's no challenges to the world that they've set up for their own purposes.
I mean, I like the part where she was talking about where they were firing missiles over our allies, Japan, our allies, the same allies who they dropped atomic bombs on and killed over 250,000 of their people, animals, etc., in a 10-day period. They not only bombed Hiroshima, but they bombed Nagasaki as well. And you're going to say these are our allies, as if they fired missiles over people who we committed genocide and we actually did an experiment on. You know what I'm saying? We dropped a whole atomic bomb on these people, killed grandmothers, babies, animals, plants, messed up all types of shit. But you know, they're our allies. The fact is, they were still hot with Gaddafi going back to 73. You know what I'm saying? When he convinced OPEC to put up an embargo against the U.S. and all these other countries that are supporting Zionist Israel. You know what I'm saying? They understood that he had too much power, and they understood that oil being their greatest commodity was going to cause problems if they had no control. Their banks, the French, the French, French, Britain, the U.S., they couldn't control their banks. They couldn't pimp them like they did other African countries. So they said, we got to get rid of them. And what they did, they said, oh, let's get a Negro president. It's perfect time. You know what I'm saying? They did all their dirt under Obama. Let's bring in AFRICOM. You know what I'm saying? And let's do our thing. And now we're going to get on TV. She's on this podcast with this other Negro broad over here who's like the worst of the worst. I mean, it's like you got the two wickedest witches on the planet, you know, side by side. And we're supposed to take them serious. I mean, Condoleezza hasn't even said anything yet. And this is horrible enough. Just their visual.
Well, throughout this podcast, in typical white women way, Hillary dominates even over her contemporary Condoleezza Rice in terms of trying to get a word in edgewise.
The phrase that got me was, we have problems. We have real issues. And I'm like, we have problems. There's a drought in California. There's a humanitarian crisis at the US-Mexico border. We got children in cages still. Remember that? Our bridges are crumbling. Homelessness is rising in every city. Like, what? And that's just a few of the things. We have problems. Like, what? Anyway, the arrogance. Oh, it's so paternalistic. It's so colonial. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right, Ricky. Thank you for that correction. The expansion of AFRICOM during Obama, which made things worse. More drones, you know, more assassinations of quote unquote dictators, more invasions, you know, and Hillary was right there with her hot sauce. Thank you, Hillary.
In enough places with enough support that we can be a good ally to those who are counting on us.
And you have to watch the potential rise of terrorism again. So you have a lot on your plate. But I would just say, should the United States be selective in the use of its military power?
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
After Afghanistan and Iraq, which we did for security reasons, not because we wanted to spread democracy at gunpoint, but for security reasons.
Although ultimately we were told that spreading democracy would make the world safer because freer countries would.
Well, I think if you
peaceful.
actually look at the record, democratic countries actually don't invade their neighbors. Democratic countries don't.
The States has invaded more countries than any other country in the world. The United States, the list of people killed or murdered particularly since World War II, of the country that has done the most invading, the most killing, the most murdering, the most stealing of resources, the most overthrowing, is a so-called democracy, the United States. And so our liberal host does nothing to challenge that. He does nothing she just sweeps by Iraq and Afghanistan being invaded without any challenge to the premise on which it's being invaded.
I mean, can you imagine the script? Can you imagine the script that he was given to get these two people on there? Do you think that he just, you know, they wouldn't been on Remix Morning Show? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like they wouldn't have been on Renegade Culture. They wouldn't have been on I Mix What I Like or Riot Started TV because of the fact that we wouldn't go along with the script. Like, okay, you said this. Oh yeah, check. You said don't say this. That's the first thing we're talking about. So it's like, I mean, this is game. This is propaganda. He probably got a fat check from the State Department just for hosting this.
Democratic countries don't use weapons of mass destruction. So I think
they don't harbor them, but they have them.
Well,
you can't. It'd be hard to. But John, was planned in Germany.
They're not aided and supported by government.
I understand.
And the.
I understand what you're saying.
Always
that is a distinction.
But always try to look at the converse, right?
Yes.
Just because they have in some of these weak states terrorists among them, would you rather have somebody who's actually harboring them and assisting them?
Understood.
So that's the first point. The second point is that yes, we need to be more selective, but I would be the strongest voice, as I know Hillary is, when Vladimir Putin decides to extinguish his neighbor Should the United States really just step back from that and say, well, that's kind of your business after all. Ukraine's been a part of the Russian Empire and so forth. And there are some people in the United
Is Haiti America's business? Guatemala's been invaded. Brazil has been invaded. Dominican Republic has been invaded. The taking over of Puerto Rico. Cuba has been invaded and surrounded. I mean, is that just the United States business? So then, therefore, the Soviet Union or Russia, China, everybody else then should have a right to come into the defense of those nations to stop the U.S. invasion of those nations under that very skewed logic.
United States who would say, not in Ukraine, let's do it in Des Moines. And I think that is the bigger threat, that the United States will not feel that the American people will not feel the pull to continue to be the place that people can look when something awful like that happens.
But is it then the difference between the first Gulf War, which is Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait and the United States forms a coalition and helps push him out, versus the United States deciding these bad actors, we really are the only country. It's not that other people don't meddle, but we're the only country that actively promotes regime change.
So that's that.
What a phrase. Actively promotes the regime change. What a phrase.
I mean, it's packaged so well, isn't it? We actively promote regime change. Yes, you do. You actively overthrow, assassinate, commit genocide. And the fact that you're playing this piece right here, the day before, quote unquote, Thanksgiving, is pure irony. I mean, it's just like, this is, wow. Talk about genocide, talk about invasions.
Mm-hmm.
They were invading before they were even the United States. I'm talking about there wasn't a time in history where the U.S. was not at war or in some type of conflict. If you check the years, not 1 year was the U.S. not in conflict with somebody, not 1 year, and that goes from the Africans that were kidnapped and brought here, the natives who existed here and others, and just all of these different countries. And it's crazy that they're 5% of the world population, but they wield such power. It's just, incredible. It's like, it's amazing. And they go for it. And they're slowly building up, and they're the police of the world. Over 900 military bases in 130 plus countries. Amazing.
Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, wow, I'm trying to imagine, for example, China having a military base in the US, and I was like, it just didn't even make sense to me. Like that would never be allowed to happen, and we are in so many countries.
Closest thing to that was Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the United States having, a military base. Think of the United States still has a military base in Cuba. That's how strong the country is, right? The hegemony is so complete that the very nation that it is has an embargo out on is still a nation which it has a military base on, because that nation isn't basically, and this all comes down to power politics, isn't strong enough to throw them out. And there is no support outside of Cuba, other Latin American nations or other folks, even within the United States, demanding an end to the Guantanamo base that even pushes them out. So it's just, and the media talks about it like it's this, hey, it's just a normal thing. Don't look over here that they have a base here, as well as this is this one of, as you talked about, 800 bases around the world. So the idea that somehow the United States is protecting anything except its own interests, it's built the world in its image, right? It's like Rome was an empire. The United States is an empire that dominates the narrative where, like you said, where a person like a Jon Stewart, who obviously doesn't even need an extra check because his views, he's allowed to get in that position in the first place because his views are so already reconciled with the mainstream narrative that, yeah, of course, we may make a couple of mistakes here and there, or let's talk about the edges of this issue, but let's talk about it in a way which gives complete cover to the United States ideas that it has a right and it should be doing this, and it's doing this for the good of the world, as opposed to it's doing what it does, again, to steal resources and to be dominant over other people's nation states.
Right. And to put it simple, the U.S. with these bases in places like Cuba is akin to you have a house, and in your house you have folks who have murdered your family, your ancestors. They've enslaved them. They've stolen from you. They've raped your family members, and they have a room in your house. You understand what I'm saying? Like they're literally in your house, and you can't do any. You're mad. You're protesting, but they're still in your house, and you can't get them out your house. You know what I'm saying?
And they tell you who gets to visit your house.
Absolutely. On top
Like
of it.
they
Like
stop
you invited them.
Yeah, exactly. They can't come in your house. They're trying to deliver food. No.
No.
Medicine?
They'll be eating
No.
while they eat your food. They'll be eating your food, telling you what you can't eat. These motherfuckers are incredible.
But
Having
how?
flying visitors over. I don't want to call the people who were interned at Guantanamo visitors, but flying people over into to continue on, to stay there, to take over more space, to do things that you give them no permission to do.
Right. And then they talk about freedom. And then you have someone here in the US like Veranza Bowers, who's been locked up for 47 years and who literally maxed out 17 years ago and is still imprisoned. You understand what I'm saying? And you don't even hear, you're talking about a veteran Panther who right now today was supposed to have been released back in 2005. And he's been locked up. And still locked up. And folks even in the movement don't even mention his name. They talk about everybody. But when you say Veranza Bowers, the average cat don't even know who Veranza Bowers is. But we're talking about revolution. This man literally, and then you hear folks say, oh, they can't do that. What the hell you mean they can't do that? They're doing it. But they're talking about, but we talk about what's going on in different places and how we should support this person and that person and so on and so forth. We can't even support what's going on in our face.
Thank you for the super sticker. My question is, how do we get people to understand the connection between this large, overwhelming hegemony that we're talking about that's international and linking that to this is actually something that we need to divest from. Like we need to divest from this two-party system in general and move towards something else, because I feel like people are still stuck on actually unplugging completely from what we're dealing with.
I think the stuff that we talked about earlier is correct in terms of how people are either they're brought in, they feel like they can't change it, or in terms of how we're fish swimming in the water, but we don't understand that we're in the fishbowl. We think we're in the ocean, right? We think we're free, where really we're in a fishbowl or museum or aquarium, and everything around us is manufactured to make us feel a certain way when really our lives are under control, and we either have not or have not done enough recently to break out of that mix, right? I think there's always things that pop up. Again, we talk about there's insurrections that pop up. It's this instability that pops up that every now and then shows us that we can break through this bubble. But I think for the most part, the system it tries to contain that. It sort of switches things out to give us new things to stare at, or new shiny things to be impressed at, or new things to talk about that are outside of the real issues at hand. And while that's happening, they continue to try to solidify, reconfigure, fix whatever issues they have to keep their system going. And their system is purely about how much money they can make off of us and how they can continually keep us out of control by, again, not just by getting us to sit down in front of a TV and watch the shows that they present for us and buy the products, but by the physical threat of violence against us if we dare act up and try to do something against the conditions that we see ourselves in.
Yeah, we're in the gas chamber and we're all trying to breathe through this little hole in the wall, trying to get this oxygen. And the reality is, ultimately, if we don't shut this gas chamber down, then we're all going to be gone. And that's just the reality of things. Anyway, speaking of gas chambers.
Oh, I was just going to go speaking of gas. Gas chamber.
Yeah. Yes, I was over here pondering. And I was thinking about, the whole Family and Friends Day I've been promoting throughout the years that's going on tomorrow. And I was just wondering if if we started looking at this whole family and friends gathering as something where we can sit down, talk about family affairs in a way where we can possibly learn a new technique, maybe learn like CPR, learn how to fix something in the house, and then really come together and talk about generational health, wealth. And I'm not just talking about money, but as in building up the family, as in having a family meeting. After that, eat, drink, and party. So if we start looking at it that, then we can stop. You know, some people be like, I'm not celebrating no holidays, so I'm not coming. And it's a big debate. If we start looking at it as days when we can come together and plan instead of what the Europeans told us to do, then I think we can take better advantage of these holidays.
Well,
So,
like,
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree. I mean, I think we, as folks who are interested in organizing, there are always opportunities to organize. And sometimes it's not even the hardcore rhetoric that wins people over, but it's showing that you are caring, that you're going to do things to mobilize folks, that you're going to come up with solutions to problems, which can sometimes most impact people to get them to the place where they're willing to listen to larger issues or listen to language which they just have been told to reject or to be scared of, or they just don't understand. So I'm not mad with you. I'm not mad with you on that. Shockingly,
I think the thing is, you know, back in the day, I was one of those folks that was like what you were saying. I'm not coming because whatever. The thing that I look at right now is any opportunity that we have to get with our families. You know what I'm saying? That's a beautiful thing. If, you know, the thing, you know, a lot of times we get caught up in swimming against the current, right? And that's cool. But at the same time, there's things that you're going to miss. You don't have to celebrate or participate in festivities. You can go check out your family, see what's good. You know what I'm saying? Because of the fact that this time on this planet is limited. And one thing that capitalism does is it robs us in so many ways that even when we think we're resisting, we're still depriving ourselves of our loved ones. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying participate because I don't celebrate these holidays. I don't acknowledge them. I don't respect them because and if I do, when I go around, I'm not gonna be Debbie Downer at the table.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, I'm going to tell you what the deal is. I'm going to remind you. And yes, I'm going to acknowledge the natives. I'm going to acknowledge that this is genocide, you know, and it's a beautiful thing that our family can get together and we should all remember the lives that were lost. So let's remember our ancestors. You know what I'm saying? No, we're not celebrating what these folks are talking about. So if you want me to come, expect that. If not, then, you know, I'll be over in the corner. And that's the business.
That's beautiful. I love all of this. Yeah, I totally agree with this idea of kind of just figuring out what you like what matters to you in terms of your values and what you want to celebrate and how you want to celebrate something or not. I've been calling it Thanksgiving, or I've been trying to read literature about indigenous struggles in the United States and all over. There's an echo. Can you hear that? Yeah. So that's kind of how I see it, and I appreciate. But also, I think we need to add into the mix thinking about the ways in which we do organize with each other. So what's the container for this organization? Like, is there, I'm looking for a word that's not quite covenant, but like agreement to conduct, right? Like, how are we going to have these discussions? Like what happens if someone brings up something that is really traumatizing or something that happened in the past? Like, how are we going to facilitate this in a way that makes people want to stay at the table, and know that they're safe to talk about these things and shake off this propaganda? Because coming out of this is really difficult for a lot of people. It was difficult for me. So, yeah.
I think we have to remember that there are no absolutes, and I think that the one thing that folks attempt to do is package things in their image and their way, right? I wanted to address that comment that Freedom Power said. He said they said stop trying to compromise with genocide. You can see your family before and after genocide day. That sounds good in theory, but you don't know everyone's family. You know what I'm saying? Some folks are going to travel in certain times. So
Yeah.
if I get to see my daughter who lives in Texas, or I get to see my uncle who lives in on the continent, or whatever, if I got the opportunity to see them and they happen to be Christian or they happen to celebrate certain things, and this is the only opportunity I'm going to get to see them between now and the next 10, 15 years, then this is what I do. That's not compromising with genocide. I'm not compromising with my people, with my family, with my lineage. That's more important than the act itself. Again, there are no absolutes. You know, part of the reason why folks don't join the quote unquote movement is because everyone has their own rules and ideas, and they're so rigid when it comes to everyone else. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you know, to each his own. But, you know, if you could, at the very least, definitely resist. But at the same time, don't compromise your values, your personal values with your people and your loved ones. Because, like I said, we're on this planet for less than a century in most cases.
Yeah.
And we'll allow these motherfuckers to rob us of every single thing. We won't even have any joy because of the fact they're like, well, I'm not going because they're making turkey. Look, man, listen, okay, we get it, you're vegan.
You know what I mean?
I'm vegan too. Shut up, sit down.
Eat them green beans without the.
You know what I'm saying? Like stop playing, man. Some of y'all act like, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, just like a lot of people also talking about how we can't flip it. Like, yo, find a God in yourselves and find the power to do whatever y'all want to do. Y'all say we can't take this day and flip it. We done flip so many things, and we got to stop giving these Europeans this power of, oh, this is their day. This is the day that they said this is gonna. Yo, man, stop giving them the power and take whatever day you want and make it yours. The plantation gave the slaves some days off. So these are the days that the people gonna get together. So get over it and stop trying to be like, oh, we gonna do something, and then you're not doing nothing but sitting there sulking in the corner. Anyway, man, let's go ahead and get to this quick break right here. I said mine. So right here on the Remix Morning Show, let's go. Yeah. All right, boom. So as you see me, I'm out here in the desert pondering, thinking about some stuff. Actually, I got to go and do a podcast with Black Man Lab, and there was a question that was presented, like, what do you want from your politicians if you had them sitting in front of you, or what do you want from your other brothers? And I got to let my brothers know what I wanted, which is a topic I think should be raised and talked about right here.
Give it to us.
I did want to say what I would ask from my brothers.
Oh
too.
yeah, my fault.
Please. I really want to get that off.
Rewind.
Can I say it real quick? Brothers, we got to build better relationships with these sisters, not just sexual relationships.
Yes.
We got to build better relationships with sisters and stop just throwing them to the side if they don't deal with us on that. We got to have better relationships and get out our egos and stop feeling where you got to be tough all the time to each other.
Can I piggyback off that real quick? There is so much value in a genuine friendship with a woman that you will never understand if you don't open yourself up to that.
All right, so as you see, what I was talking about pretty much is certain times in life, even back in the day when we have a rites of passage where we would separate the men and separate the women, and we would teach them how to be a man, teach them how to be a woman. But when do we ever come back together and teach each other how to relate to each other than the sexual part? Like certain people, like our siblings and our cousins, we was like, you can't touch. Y'all can be family and friends, and you can develop relationships with them, which is on a friendship level. But people outside of your family, for most guys, it was like, all right, that's a woman. You need to go try to get with her. Instead of being like, you know what, let me build a friendship with this person and then later see if we can have a relationship. So that's the question I was posing. We should all work on having better relationships with the men and the women, because I don't think we really took the time to take time out to build these relationships. So with that said, I'm going to go back to the Remix Morning host and see what their thoughts are. Let's go. Oh. Yeah. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts? Let's start with you, Lucretia. What's your thoughts on that? Have you built relationships outside with brothers on some friendship level?
This is a whole thing. First thing I'm going to say is we should abandon the gender binary. So like we should just think about gender as a spectrum.
Okay.
Second thing I'll say is growing up as a woman, it's like you I don't even know where to start. I'll just say it's hard to make friends with men that are constantly trying to have sex with you, right? And who don't see you as anything but a sexual object. So even if you want to talk to a man platonically, it's like, oh, she was nice to me. She asked me about my I don't know, my job. So oh, she must like me, you know, and I want to be with you. It's like, no, I'm just trying to talk to you like a human being. Like, I don't want to have sex with you, you know, like, and so, and then having the invisibility of being queer, it's like, why don't you want to be with me? It's like, well, you just don't know what, and I'm not going to tell you because it's not your business. But like that assumption that I'm supposed to reciprocate makes it really hard to be friends with someone, you know? And that's why I'll leave it for now.
What's your thoughts, Kamal?
I mean, I think like partly, the male ego, I'm just going off of what Lucretia was talking about in particular, is very fragile. And, maybe part of this might be biological or in a sense of like, procreation is partly how the species. So attempting to get with someone for the purposes of that is a little bit biological, but it's also, if I give a little bit of room for that, it's got to be tiring for women because I do agree with you that 85% of males interaction it has to be retrained or rethought, and particularly action with somebody who they think that they may be i.e. attracted to, or they want something more out of this friendship, because it has to be tiring to women to have to figure out. Even it's like, can I even you have to respond a certain way. You have to be careful about what you say, even if you're not trying to be careful, because you're partly having to think through the idea of how will this person receive it, and then what is their next steps in receiving it, right? In terms of their intentions towards me. Is it, very, in my personal honest opinion, most straight dudes, when they talk to women, not exclusively by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a range of it that's involving, can I get with you? Kind of. And I do think that's something that, has to be retrained, rethought, reconfigured, because too many times it starts to, it just bleeds over and it does not even allow for those kind of like friendships, right, to develop, because you're always on guard that by talking to somebody, they're going to think that means that you like them, or they're going to think that's an opening for some other way to get in there, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's constant growth, man. I think we do immature things and we grow. I would like to think. I think that everything is about expansion. I don't know. I think that right now, depending on where we are, I wouldn't say level of consciousness, quote unquote, but just having an understanding of where we are today, it's like certain things just feel like total distractions. It's like, how do we win is the nature of the day. You know what I'm saying? That's where I am. So, some of this stuff is like, I don't know, man. It's like, I can see where it would be tiring for women. But I think that oftentimes, even on the flip side, it goes in that direction for men as well. I think that oftentimes that, you being polite or nice to a woman sometimes mean that you like them or whatever as well. There are those cases, being a quote unquote, what they call an alpha or whatever, or having a certain type of masculinity. Some may say hyper masculinity, whatever you want to call it. Some women are into certain things or whatever. And there's, so the whole thing gets tiring after a while. for everybody because of the fact
so
that we
Because
are,
I ain't gonna front. I've been trained to flirt with attractive women, even if it's it's trying to get some business done. It's like I automatically go to, hey, you looking nice today, blah blah blah. It's like we've been trained to that, and it's
we
like
have,
reverse training we have to go through in order to even conduct business, to conduct a friendship, because there's so many opportunities we're missing out on by not working together just due to the all right, they're trying to get with me or either on either side. You know what I mean?
And I think it can be a both and, right? Like, I think if we want to bring people in to organize, right, in our spaces, in our communities, in our families, right, I think we need to, at the same time, address the issues that have kept us apart, right? So I think you talked about this on another show. I think it was Dr. Ball. He mentioned what was happening in the movement 20 years ago that hadn't been addressed. I believe it was a sexual abuse case, and it's like if women or trans people or gay people don't feel safe in your organization, in your family, right? They're not going to join. They're just not going to be there, right? And so we need to think about the ways in which women have been harmed, LGBTQ people, whatever marginalized identity, by these things, and break that down and be able to interface with that. And like, I don't know if it's like a justice circle. I don't know if it's like drawing up some type of like agreement to conduct, or I don't know. Like, I don't know how it would look for each group, but a way in which to address the harm that has happened and repair that at the same time while trying to organize together. I think we can do both at the same time.
I like the optimism.
I want to highlight this comment too. I put it up for abuse. Like, so this one person said, I wore an engagement ring throughout high school because men wouldn't leave me alone unless I belonged to another man. And I do. And again, I think that I've known other women who've told me stories like similar around either wedding rings or bands because of, again, the amount of by no means exclusive on one side, but the amount thereof of like the attention, unwanted attention. And again, sometimes it's how the human species moves forward is obviously through people making interactions and getting together and all that kind of stuff, or desirable of each other. But there are times, obviously, and too many times, particularly in Western society, where it is just about the sort of what you could get like from somebody, right? Mm-hmm. It's not meant to build something deep or desirable or whatever, but it's strictly what you can get from somebody else. And again, unless both parties are willing, that's one thing. But the amount of times, at least again in the friendships that I've had with women who have talked to me, that the level of intrusiveness, and being polite with my words, that happens in terms of women getting approached by males, and something, wanting something more than friendship, or the seeking out. Again, I go back to the word exhausting. Like they just, it's like
Exhausted.
Folks have just described it as just like,
Well, thank y'all for your thoughts on this topic. I will catch y'all next time. Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Ear Doctor.
Thank you.
Doctor, Ear Doctor.
Doctor, Ear Doctor.
I must admit, I missed most of his stuff. Doctor who?
Dr. JB in the chat. Dr. Jared Ball.
Hey.
Where he at? He talking about his sonny. What's going on?
He's in Europe someplace, right?
He's in Europe. Okay.
He was in Paris yesterday, and today he might. I think what he said, he's either in Amsterdam or England or something.
Oh, he's in London. Yeah. Peace.
Doing the world tour. What up? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. You're in London. I gotta hook you up with some folks out there. You know what I mean? So
and he seems to be on the search for weed also. I mean, we got that. Okay, wow. He came on here yesterday. He was complaining that France didn't have enough free weed for him to get.
They have enough guns.
The laws were really restrictive, and he was a little surprised by that because the wee state always is trying to show how liberal it is, but in that way they clamp down on.
Yeah,
he's hoping like to get a better outcome in his travels to England today.
Okay.
Yeah, just any green apparently, not better. Any.
Yeah, just
anywhere.
Double check your luggage coming up out of there, homie. We don't want no problems. We don't want no problems. You know what I mean? Free JB. You know what I mean? Over some green. But anyway, it's out there, man. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. You know, more the words of Mr. Rogers. Whole lot coming up, whole lot going on. here in Atlanta on the 10th of December. FTP will be co-sponsoring along with a number of different organizations this piece for Dr. Mutulu Shakur benefit concert. I know that so far I haven't been in the loop because I've been kind of out the loop, but I know that M1 from Dead Prez, Wise Intelligent, and others will be participating in this particular event here in Atlanta. We will get you all Cash App links and PayPal links and all of that so that you can support even if you're not in Atlanta, because I know that Dr. Mutulu Shakur will need certain things in order to make this transfer and this release happen in real time, because we got to keep in mind that the state will go to extreme lengths. They'll get you gassed up and they'll tell you, yes, comrade such and such is getting out, and they'll try to hold on to the last minutes. We've seen that happen with folks like Marilyn Buck, who was out for about 5 days before she transitioned. So let's make sure that we aid and assist as much as we can in the release of Dr. Mutulu Shakur, and continue to fight for the release of other political prisoners, such as Imam Jamil Al-Amin, formerly H. Rap Brown. You have Ed Poindexter out in Omaha. You have folks like Veronza Bowers, who I mentioned earlier, Kamal Siddiqui, and others. So make sure we stay on the right side of the barricade and support those who support us, support these veteran freedom fighters, and don't just, because a lot of times we talk about it, we say free such and such, but we have to be active in their release. I mentioned earlier that Kevin KJ Johnson is scheduled to be executed in 6 days. There's an interview we did with Dr. Joy James and I did with him. If you missed that, check out Riot Started TV. It's in the archives. You can get to hear his voice, what he talked about, who he is, and how he feels about what took place and what hasn't taken place. I was thinking yesterday, I was like, man, there's only one cop on death row right now. This year alone, over 1,000 people have been murdered by police. In the last 17 years that KJ's been on death row, there's been close to 20,000 people murdered by police in the US, right? But there's only one cop. I mean, usually you won't get over 20 years for murder when it comes to the police murdering quote unquote civilians. But there's one cop on death row, a Black woman in New Orleans, and she was in 1995. She was working at this Vietnamese restaurant part-time, and her boyfriend, who was a criminal, they decided to come back to the restaurant during closing times. She was off that day, and a friend of hers, one of her fellow officers, was working that shift, and she decided to come rob the joint. So they end up murdering her fellow cop. They murdered 2 members of the family that ran the establishment, and the other 2 folks actually hid in the freezer. Her name is Antoinette Frank. After she murdered those folks, they murdered them. They left. The boyfriend, he was so smart that he decided to use the dead cop's credit card to get some gas down the street. She still had her police radio, so the folks that hid in the freezer, they decided to call in police. Call and notify that they were robbed or whatever by this woman, so on and so forth. She gets the call, borrows a patrol car, and she's the first person on the scene. So luckily for the other 2 folks, she was coming to kill them, but luckily the other pigs arrived, and she was arrested. So she is the only cop on death row, and I think that I would argue that she's on death row due to the fact that she killed one of her own comrades. So I just wanted to give you all that little tidbit, because there's been so many murders. You talk about, I mentioned Katherine Johnson, who was assassinated a couple of days ago, 16 years ago, and the cops there, The one that got the highest amount of time was 10 years. We mentioned Sean Bell. Of course, we're going to 16 years with that. All of those cops were acquitted. So, I'm just looking at how this thing plays out. And of course, you all mentioned that Tamir Rice was his anniversary was yesterday. So, for those of you who haven't signed the petition for Kevin K.J. Johnson, or if you don't know anything about the case, check out the interview. There's also an interview, the piece we did in Truth Out. Check that out and try your best to support this brother, because his daughter, he has a 19-year-old daughter that was 2 years old at the time of the incident, and her mother ended up being murdered 2 years after he was in prison. She was shot in the back of the head by her then boyfriend. Since 4 years old, his daughter, hasn't had either parent in her life. She just had a baby boy 2 months ago. And, so Kevin's the grandfather as well. We have, I'll share with you all the link to a what do you call it? A registry to support the grandchild, So, if you are, whether you're an atheist or you're religious or whatever, pray, meditate, make phone calls, spread the information. Again, this is in real time. We've watched people, watch the state put expiration dates on people in the past. Here it is, a man that's 37 years who's already served 17 years. And, they're still talking about executing them in the state of Missouri.
So I dropped in the chat. Also, you spoke about Mutulu. I put in the chat a PayPal link. One of, I think, a couple of ways in which you can support directly Mutulu Shakur in terms of helping him once he's released, or helping with some resources that can go towards him to make him comfortable, to supply for him, to help out, support him and his family. I should also mention that the Veteran Panthers Mutual Aid Fund is going to donate $1,000 from the proceeds from this month's Patreon resources directly to support. So thank everybody who continues to support that effort to give money to Veteran Panthers. There may be a contribution for Mutulu. I got one more story that I wanted to add that we didn't get to, and it was coincidentally, I saw folks in the chat talking about it, so it reminded me that we had it pulled up, that it's just something that we should talk about, just in terms of what gets people, well, not what gets people, but something that relates to folks organizing, and I say that term maybe loose still, supporting something. And so, as folks know, over the last few days, this has kind of hit the airwaves of social media, and folks not knowing exactly at the time what group this was. And so it says Black Hebrew. And I feel like this is also now white folks are getting educated on who Black Israelites are. And so that's always weird and interesting or whatever. So Black Hebrew Israelites marched toward Barclays Center in support of Kyrie Irving's return to Brooklyn Nets. And I think over the last few days, they have been staging these demonstrations. And so this Black Enterprise, this is coming from them. The Black Hebrew Israelites have taken to the streets of Brooklyn in the wake of Kyrie Irving's return to the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets reinstating Irving on Sunday ahead of Sunday night's game between the Nets and Memphis Grizzlies. Once Irving's return was announced, a swarm, as they say, of Black Hebrew Israelites organized a march on the streets where they shouted a chant announcing themselves as the real Jewish community. The chant, the real Jews, and it shows the Israelites, Black Israelites marching in unison while chanting en route to the Nets' home at the Barclays Center. And a good contingent, let's say, like so. Black Israelite Jews out in force today chanting, "We are the real Jews," and various comments. The group donned purple and gold attire while standing outside the Barclays Center singing their chant. And it's, again, folks who are not familiar, the Hebrew Israelites obviously have been around for a long time. as part of a subculture of the Black community, right? This is the Nation has been a subculture, other groups have been subcultures, Christian groups and others. The Hebrew Israelites are not new for the Black community, but all of a sudden they're being uplifted into mainstream media to be spoken about. And then the other thing for me to comment on is whether I like them or not. It's interesting, again, the ways in which our people have self-organized. And again, this is a religious formation, one that I would consider to be out there, do not express views that I agree with, but one which is organized. One which has organized itself in, depending on which faction you belong to, that owns land in different parts of the world, owns property here in the United States, that gives some structure to people's lives, usually working class and poor people, and something that organizing, even when obviously under the pale of government scrutiny to a degree where it breaks up organizing and radical organizing, still has not necessarily been able to even duplicate in terms of the size of this religious offshoot group has done. So again, whether I think what they're protesting is crazy or not, whether or not that's obviously where their time should be spent. For me, a larger question is also what is it that we need to be doing that organizes people in the numbers that some of these other groups can do based on their religious practices. So this
Agreed. Yeah.
I think the first thing that we should do is we should recognize that they call themselves Hebrew Israelites, not Black Hebrew Israelites. That's what these white folks do, just like when they talk about Black Muslims and the Black this, so on and so forth. And that it's not one group. You know, it's like the Christian church. You don't say the Christian church is blah, 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 or the Muslims. You know, there's different types of Israelites or Hebrew Israelites or whatever. So we have to point that out. I think the other thing too is we need to also recognize that because we don't get down with certain things or whatever, don't mean that it's wrong. If folks are organizing and they're doing what they need to do, fighting oppression and resisting or whatever, then we should unite with whatever from whatever level we possibly could. What happens is oftentimes we co-sign what the powers that be are talking about because of the fact that we don't want to appear to be anti-Semitic, or we don't want to appear to be against certain groups or whatever, so on and so forth. But we have to understand that, you know, there's no absolutes, there's no one group, and you know, we need to look at it from that particular angle, because, you know, folks are, I mean, there are a lot of folks who are in the movement, quote unquote, right now, who are in the quote unquote Black Power movement, or in the movement period, that identify as being Hebrew Israelites. You know what I'm saying? They just don't wear a certain garb, and they don't share their doctrines and all of that with everyone. So I think we need to, you know, do as Malcolm said, go in the closet, put our religion on the shelf, and we come out swinging. Certain things are sacred to people, and we should respect them just like we respect folks' gender and anything else. You know, that's just my thought. And
Lucretia,
also,
you wanted to weigh in, Lucretia? I'm sorry.
Yeah, real quick. Shout out to Kyrie Irving too for donating that $65,000 to Shanquilla's to Shanquilla Robinson's fund. Sorry.
Did you freeze there? Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you both are saying in terms of organizing in the best way that we possibly can with people. And yeah, like I said earlier, I think developing ways in which we can have the hard conversations with, especially the people that we care about, like this weekend, right? Like maybe you might be wanting to bring up something and it may be difficult, or, you know, you've got that racist, that sexist uncle that always makes those jokes. Like, however way that you can like interrupt that in a way that feels safe for you is fighting oppression. And so I think getting in the practice of doing that in our everyday lives in each moment is kind of the best way in which we can first change ourselves, in which we can change others in our interactions. And yeah, I hope everyone has a safe and restful time until we see you next.
Yeah. So I mean, I want to say that So some of it, yeah, I mean, I think it's important to dissect and look at these groups and what can be taken out of how they organize. But I also think it's important, not because of what anybody else thinks, to challenge and have debates and discussions around ideological differences and religious practices, which can be narrow and lead to outcomes in the community which are even more narrow and what I would consider to be illegitimate or harming to our larger community. So at the same time, there's something about their efforts that I do actually similarly. It was like, when I think about the nation, in a sense, like, and I think I've talked about this before, there's certain things about the nation I respect. There's certain things I think they've done that I think deserves or demands respect. But I also think when we look down the road and when we look about ideological practice and ideas and the confrontation of ideas and so forth, there's definitely strong differences that have to be brought out and spoken about and understood. Because again, for me individually, I don't want that narrative to gain to be the overwhelming narrative of what resistance looks like in the Black community. Now, again, I think there's reasons why they are targeted in terms of mainstream press that really don't have to do a lot about them resisting American capitalism, but more as they're a group that could be put out there to be easily targeted because of their sort of some of their views, which I do consider to be outrageous or crazy or not necessarily things that I want to foment. But I don't think of them as like a danger to any other population because they don't do anything to anybody else except shout rhetoric. In fact, any harm that will be done internally within our community, not to outside communities by the spreading of some of that propaganda. But I think it's interesting about how they organize, and again, the tactics that they use and what they're able to do in the working class way in which they gather folks and work with folks. To me, is something that's interesting. But yeah. Right. So I'm never sure. I've never worked with the Hebrew Israelites in any way. I've worked with the nation in different things, but I've never found.
I think you have. You just didn't know. I think you have.
No,
you just didn't know.
I have not.
No. I know some.
Well,
people
there might be individuals. You mean? I mean,
right?
That's
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I want to just real quick again. I think that we're looking at one particular faction of a label, because you have for example the Hebrew Israelites at Soul Vegetarian Restaurant. You know what I'm saying? You're never seeing them yelling or anything at anyone. They're cool, calm, and collective. I have some Israelite friends down in another part of Georgia. They have their own land. They've been building their own land. Matter of fact, one of the comrades who is a veteran Panther, one of the OGs that we respect, his daughter's a part of that movement. And they have land, they have farmland, they work, they can't handle their own business. They're growing. They're never yelling at anyone. Their women are dressed modest, so on and so forth. Their men are dressed modest. It's about respect, so on and so forth. So again, we take what mainstream media shows us, or what we saw on 125th or wherever, you know what I'm saying? And we take a small part of a group and we say that this represents the whole, and it's not the case. And honestly, it's kind of what they do with us as Africans. You know what I'm saying? You've never been around Africans before, so now you see some Africans on the corner, you say that's all they do. You know what I'm saying? Black folks just have their pants hanging down. They like to eat meat. They like, whatever, so on and so forth. When that's not the case, we really have to investigate further, because we're talking about a very small percentage of a group of individuals who might not even believe the same doctrine nor even operate the same. It's just like with the Nation of Islam. There are folks in Islam, there are Muslims that don't even consider the NOI Muslims. You know what I'm saying? So again, we have to really investigate, because what happens is we'll end up doing more harm to the whole, or we'll create enemies based on the fact that we have to a great extent prejudged the whole based on our experience with a few, and not even realize that, okay, I didn't even know these people right here. I didn't know you was a Hebrew Israelite. You're such and such, whatever, so on and so forth. And then you sound like white folks. You're not like the rest of them. You understand what I'm saying? So we got to gain clarity and figure out, what's what and who's who. And I think we'll go a little further. And also my last thing is, with our criticism of each other, we have to get to a point where we're able to sit down with other brothers and sisters and find points of unity. I think we're quick to throw everyone away because of the fact that we feel their ideology is crazy or whatever the case is. But we have to sit down with folks if we're talking about winning, because the fact is, the truth is, when you talk about the movement, quote unquote, today, it's bullshit. I'm going to tell you that. I'm actively involved 36 years plus. It is straight bullshit. We can't even get along with each other. So how the hell are we talking about these other forces? So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. I don't, yeah. Oh,
We're getting kicked out.
I think we're getting kicked out. We'll talk more about this on Tuesday. So for everybody, this is our last day for this week. We're not coming on tomorrow. We know folks ain't gonna may or may not be around, but if you are, don't look for us because we're not gonna be on the air tomorrow. We'll be back next week, Tuesday, with a new week of Renegade. I'm gonna say Renegade with the Remix Morning Show. And I think I Mix What I Like might be on, and all your favorite shows might be on this weekend. You just check out. Look for all the notices to make sure that they are on. Remember, support us, Patreon, all the rest of it. And we thank y'all for joining us. Peace out. Enjoy your weekend. Yep.
Be safe out there.